I'm assuming these chairs will all be given away in the Capitol.
Same setup.
And Dad.
All right, everybody, welcome to the very first meeting of the House Rural Development Committee. We are so excited to be here, and thank you. Yes. We're not going to do anything until we open with prayer, and I've asked Representative Al Williams if he would do us the honor today. Rep. Williams, what number is your mic?
Question 7.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, eternal God, we thank you for once again this opportunity. We ask your special blessings upon this new committee. Guide it, Lord, and give the chairman wisdom. And let those that serve on this committee remember who we serve for, those most affected in rural Georgia. Lord, we ask you to continue to bless us, keep us safe. For it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Okay, to begin with, there's some people I want to thank here. I want to thank Chairman Gerald Green and Chairman Mac Jackson for your leadership for the past 2 years or 4 years?
2 years.
2 years. Rural Development Council. Everybody here was not on the Rural Development Council, but several of us were. But that was an incredible time of learning and explaining and gathering some valuable information about the state of rural Georgia and also opportunities that we have specific to rural Georgia. And so I thank you and Chairman Green for your leadership there. Also,
Leo gets the credit.
well, that's a good segue because I was just about to thank and recognize Leo Chansey, our policy analyst. I cannot reiterate enough my relief when I found out that Leo was assigned to this committee. Everybody knows that Leo's a person you want to work with. So I'm excited about that. I want to thank my administrative assistant, Shaniqua Johnson, and also, Shaniqua Johnson, Deborah Jackson is back here. She is also one of our assistants and has already been an incredible help in getting things organized. So we have a very good team that is working with us. In addition to that, we have Paul Higbee here from Legislative Council that'll be our contact point there. So we're in very good hands, and we're well prepared to get some things done for rural Georgia here. So we all know that life in rural Georgia is unique. We've got unique opportunities. We have unique challenges, And our job here in this committee is going to be to carefully consider all of those opportunities and challenge and make sure that we are carefully considering policy that is going to positively impact the people that live in rural Georgia, the businesses that are located in rural Georgia, the people that visit rural Georgia. We want to make sure that we are having positive impacts on their life and moving us forward in a good way. And I have no doubt that members of this committee are going to be valuable and hardworking on doing that. Every one of them understands their part of rural Georgia where they live. And I do want to thank Speaker Burns for recognizing the need to make rural development a standing committee. I think that was an important decision that he made, and we do thank him for that. So with that, we are a small committee. I think that's a good thing. We have 15 members, and right now we are missing a few. We already have a lot of committee meetings happening, but for those of us that are here, we're going to go around the table quickly and just introduce ourselves and tell us what you think we need to know about your particular bent on rural Georgia, where you represent. And you're going to forgive me because you got to tell me what mic you're on before you start speaking. We'll start over here with Representative Jackson. What number have you got?
I don't have a number on that.
Oh. What are you? What are?
10 on this one.
We'll go with. We'll go 10.
This one is 10. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm State Representative Mac Jackson. I'm from the great city of Sandersville, Georgia, which is Washington County, but I serve Hancock County, Glasscock County, Warren County, a portion of Baldwin County, a portion of McDuffie County, and I said Warren County here. But I'm glad to be on this committee because there are important issues in rural Georgia, and thank you, Madam Chair, for including me on this issue, on this committee.
Mike 9.
8. The unmarked one was 9, I think.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Cameron, State House District 1, which is in the northwest corner of Georgia. I border both Alabama and Tennessee, and as I was telling Mac, sometimes I have to go through Tennessee to get to Georgia on I-24. So I cover about 400 square miles. Some of it's urban, but most of it's rural, farmland, mountains, and things. And so I have a definite interest in rural Georgia and the issues that affect it. Thank you.
Number 7.
I'm Al Williams. I represent District 168, and after listening to my colleague, thank God for level ground in southeast Georgia. No hills, the bordering states have to come to us. We don't go to them. My district borders the Atlantic Ocean. I certainly thank you, Madam Chair, for considering me for this committee. I've learned a lot. We have been all over this state under the leadership of Representative Jackson and Representative Green. We've certainly compiled a lot of things in this. Thank God it was realized a couple, 3 years ago that there is 2 Georgias, and we have to eliminate that and make it one Georgia where rural folk, no matter what your zip code, you get the same treatment as anybody in Georgia.
Thank you, Representative.
I'm Jacqueline Ford, and I am from a small town in Berrien County called Alapahaw that's got about 700 people, so very rural. I represent Tift County, all of Berrien, part of Tift County, and part of Cook County. I've served on the Economic Development Committee for the past 6 years, so it's given me a lot of experience to see what's going on around the state, also seeing where things aren't going on, which is where I'm from. So rural health care, rural education. I've served on the ABAC board for about 10 years. Just shows you what's important. I have 2 children, and it's very important to me that they return to rural Georgia and that, we start keeping some of our best and brightest at home. So I'm honored to be on this committee, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
I'm Joe Campbell, and I think I'm in my 6th session, and I'm from Southwest Georgia, Mitchell County, Decatur County, Grady, which is Bainbridge, Camilla, Cairo, actually butts up against the Florida line, and it's very, very heavy agriculture, peanuts, cotton, corn, cattle, pecans, or pecans, however you want to pronounce that. But my career was in the peanut business. I traveled this area a lot, so I'm like Jacqueline. I've seen the area a lot and familiar with it, and pleased to be on the committee. Thankful to be on it.
Thank you.
I'm Angie Osteen, District 169. That is Coffee, Irwin, Turner, and I share Tift with Jacqueline. I, too, am off of a farm. I'm actually a nurse by trade, but I haven't practiced in several years. We grow cotton, corn, and peanuts, and agriculture, as you know, is the number one industry of our state, but it is actually the number one industry in my entire district. So to say we're rural, where I'm from, I live in Ambrose, which has about 350 people. And yeah, right, very rural. We don't even have a little traffic light where I live. But it's this is very important, very near and dear to my heart, and I too am very appreciative for this opportunity.
Number 4. Well, I'm Debbie Buckner, and so far I think I've got both of you ladies beat. I'm from the suburbs of Junction City with population 250. We are the junction of 2 railroads, one that goes north and south, one that goes east and west. And like I said, I live in Talbot County. I represent the rural part of Columbus, and I also represent the county part, Troup County outside of LaGrange, and of Meriwether County around Warm Springs. I have followed this committee when it was a council and appreciated all the work that's been done so far, and am so delighted that it's now a standing committee, and look forward to serving on it and being a part of it. And our industry in our county is timber, sand, granite, and we used to have peaches, but we don't anymore. So we're looking forward to a different kind of new economic development.
Thank you. I'm Johnny Chastain. I represent the 7th District, Fannin County, Gilmer County, a little western part of Dawson County. If you go through the 7th District, you will soon be in Tennessee or North Carolina. So, Representative Williams, I think we have the whole state covered. Glad to be here, honored to be here to serve on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Corbett, District 174, which is Lowndes, Eccles, Clinch, Ware, Charlton, and Brantley counties. Extremely rural. The county I live in, Eccles, we have the whole county only has about 3,900 people, the whole county. So very, very, very rural. So we grow a lot of timber. 4 of my counties are probably over 75% timberland. The other 2 are probably 50% timberland. The rest of it, fruit and vegetables, row crops, still some tobacco grown down there, blueberries, and we are the carrot capital of the world down there. So that we're our claim to fame. We grow a lot of carrots also in that area. So anyway, this is my 11th year serving here, but I can't miss the opportunity to go back and I think I've served on the Rural Development Council from the day it was started, and the vision for that council was Speaker David Ralston. So I have to take an opportunity to thank him, honor him for his vision for what we've been able to accomplish on that committee. So glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for doing that. Last but not least, Chairman Blackman.
We just tell them where we're from, Houston County.
Tell them whatever you want to tell them.
Represent the 146th, Madam Chair, and I want to congratulate you on your selection as chair. I'm honored to be serving on your committee with all the rest of you as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. All right, next thing we're going to do is take care of some business. You've got packets, members. The first thing we want to do is oh, you know what? I neglected to point out that Leader of Stration is here with us today. Leader of Stration, thank you for being here. And if at any point you want to jump in and say anything, you just let me know what mic you're go ahead to, and we'll turn it on for you. Thank you. Okay, our rules. They're pretty standard rules. If you've had a chance to look over them, we do have we do want to look at item number 2. That quorum should be 6 instead of 8, and I would love to entertain a motion to change that from 8 to 6. Okay. All right, we got a movement and we have a second. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll make that change. And so now we need to adopt the rules. So does anybody have any questions or concerns?
time, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, we'll take that motion right now. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting these rules, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. So those rules are adopted. All right, and also want to point out, and we're not going to take much time looking at this today, but just so that you know, when we are talking about rural Georgia, what are we talking about? I mean, we know because we live there, but in case anybody has any questions, I wanted you to have maps. I'm a map person. Anytime I can get a map, I'm going to get a map and I'll share it with you all. But I think the second one, the larger map you have, they both have the same information, but the larger one has got the county names on it. So by the definition in the code, we're talking about counties with 50,000 people or less. So those are highlighted in blue on the map. Now, depending on what program, grant, opportunity we may be talking about, that number could shift. So the counties that we're talking about could change slightly, but these are the counties we're talking about. And you can see we're talking about 120 out of 159 counties. So what we're doing on this committee is going to largely impact the whole state, but we know that we do have our special needs in rural Georgia. So just for your own reference, there's your rural county map. And then the last thing that you have in here is an overview of the 2024 Rural Development Council recommendations. That came from, I believe, Dr. David Bridges wrote this. I'm so sorry. Leo Chancey wrote this. And perfect. Well, I do want to give credit where credit is due. So this is an overview of what we did at Rural Development Council this past year. So if you want to peruse over that, if you didn't already have a copy of it, so you can see some of the things we talked about and what some of the recommendations are there. So you have that there.
There are recommendations from Dr. Bridges.
Okay. All right. So business has been handled, and thank y'all for that. What we're going to do now is we're going to hear a presentation from Commissioner Nunn, Department of Community Affairs, and he is not going to talk about the over 70 programs that he administers, most of them focused on rural Georgia. I told him we don't have all day. We're going to have him back as often as we need to learn what he has at DCA that is specific to rural Georgia so that we know what we need to know. But today he's going to talk about some specific things he has, and I want to thank you and Rusty and Ryan for being here today and for taking the time out of your schedule to come and present to us. So take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's great to be with you all. Congratulations on this new committee, and we look forward to being supportive in any way that we are able. Just wrapping up the room. So I grew up in Perry, Georgia, which is in South Houston County. When Shaw and I were growing up in Houston County, Perry was a little bit more rural than it may be today. I remember when I went off to school and somebody asked me how big Perry was. I said, well, we have 8 traffic lights. They said, well, how do you know you have 8 traffic lights? I said, I went to the grand opening of the 8th. So anyway, it's good to be with you. And I'm just going to touch on a brief overview of the agency and really focus in on 3 program areas that we agreed to, which is one, Georgia, and then broadly speaking, community development, and then talk a little bit about homelessness specifically. Happy to just be interrupted and answer questions or however you choose to do, Madam Chair.
Why don't we just play it by ear?
Okay, great.
If you have some questions, burning questions that you need answered immediately, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you. And if not, we'll wait till the end and take questions there.
And if I talk too fast, just wave. I probably will talk fast just to try to get through materials. But so DCA exists to help communities to develop into thriving places for Georgia citizens, right? To help build strong, vibrant communities is our mission. And we do that by coming up alongside local leadership, working with local plans, dealing with how we might complement local funding sources and providing support and technical assistance. Organizationally, we are structured into community and economic development programs, which include planning and technical assistance that we provide to cities and counties around the state, as well as community-oriented grants and loans. On the housing side, I'll talk briefly about home ownership and housing development finance. We also provide some rental assistance that's federally funded. And then, again, I'm going to talk a little bit about homelessness. So I want to start with the One Georgia Authority, and before I do that, I want to introduce some of our team. So I'm joined today by my Deputy Commissioner, Rusty Haygood, who leads all of our community and economic development programs. I know many of you know him. Jenna Webb, who is the Director of the One Georgia Authority, and I'm going to start talking about One Georgia because this is the 25th anniversary. And then Ryan Evans, who is our Director of all of our external affairs. And at the end of this presentation, I've got all of our names and contact information, so you don't have to write furiously. So a little bit of history about the One Georgia Authority. And last week you should have received this presentation, which is just a good overview of the first 25 years of One Georgia. This authority was created by the legislature in 2000 on the heels of the tobacco settlement. So it was initially funded through tobacco settlement funds. That ended in 2000. The direct funding for One Georgia from the tobacco settlement ended in 2008. And as you know, you appropriate funds to One Georgia today. Chairman, how are you? Good to see you, sir. Speaker Burns serves as the vice chair of the One Georgia Authority, and Chairman Butch Parrish and Chairman Matt Hatchett serve on the Legislative Oversight Committee for the authority. Since 2002, DCA has provided not only leadership for the authority, engaging with communities on the grant and loan cycle side, but also working with communities or working with all of the back office administration, the accounting, the compliance, et cetera. So over the past 25 years, the One Georgia Authority has invested nearly $780 million in the state, actually in 146 counties. Earlier, I mentioned that the state is best positioned to help communities who have the capacity to leverage this investment. And leverage extends beyond just the financial commitment and also involves having local leadership, having a vision, having the financial capacity to maintain the investment. But I just want to highlight the financial capacity because you will notice that the roughly $780 million that the state has invested through One Georgia has been matched at the local level by roughly $816 million in other local funds. There is not an investment that One Georgia makes without a local community having some skin in the game. Now, at the macro level, it is very easy for us to talk about and fixate on big numbers and leverage and all of this data. But I think it's important that we remember that the real reason that we do the work that we do is to provide for the people in your districts and provide for the people who live in rural parts of our state. Economic development only occurs when it causes private investment and the creation of jobs, right? So this cumulative funding, the $780 million and the $816 million, have leveraged more than $21 billion in private investment and yielded the creation of more than 65,000 jobs in and across rural Georgia. Again, if you refer back to this magazine, you will find a number of success stories from all across the state, perhaps many that are close to home for you and that you have been involved in. I heard several folks talk about their involvement in their local economic development authority. Remembering that the original funding came from the tobacco settlement dollars, I think it's quite appropriate that Colquitt County and Coffee County were two of the earliest recipients of One Georgia funding. those two counties also, Representative Osteen, you and I were talking the other day, were the two largest tobacco producing counties in the state in 1998. Now, it's probably fitting that National Beef, which has continued to grow and expand in Moultrie, was actually our first recipient of One Georgia funding. And then on the right, upper right here in Douglas, it is we actually invested in a vision in this community, and we were discussing this the other day. I think this is a really good example to highlight an earlier point, and that is community commitment and ability to leverage funding. In Douglas Coffee County, they actually began their economic development efforts back in the 50s, working to attract development, industrial development, to complement the agricultural makeup of that community. They did a community-led capital campaign in the 70s to raise money to build their own industrial park. They attracted a great employer and then another after that. By the time One Georgia came around in 2000, they had a really thriving and diversified local economy. But One Georgia has partnered with Douglas Coffee County to help build capacity, to help some of those companies grow, to sustain some of those companies, and to help them continue to build out. And this is a great example with Premium Peanut that came online in, I think it was 2014. At the bottom two pictures, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Academy Sports Distribution Facility off I-16 in Twiggs County as you're driving back and forth to the coast. And Chairwoman, I know you're familiar in Lyons with the Toombs Corporate Center, which is just one example of many capacity building efforts as we've built industrial parks across the state. Now, as I said earlier, in fact, One Georgia has invested in 146 counties over the last 25 years, and many of these investments have yielded significant local and state benefit. Some have not, and we're always learning from our experience and improving on our program. Again, some of those lessons are that local leadership and community commitment matters. I talked about skin in the game. Planning and long-term vision are key. Workforce development and housing availability are important considerations for growth, along with many other criteria. And so with your support, we have launched over the last 24 months two new targeted initiatives, one focused on workforce housing to really spur the development of a critical need, entry-level for-sale housing for the workforce in communities all across the state. And the other is a new program that we just announced our first 6 awards in December to replenish the availability of grad certified, that's Georgia Ready for Accelerated Development sites across the state. Ironically, over the last 25 years, One Georgia has planted the seeds all across the state that have led to much of our unprecedented economic development success over the last 5 years. However, in the course of that, many of these grad sites have been consumed, and so our goal is to ensure that we continue to plant those seeds across the state for future continued growth. Now, moving on from One Georgia, and I will say economic development doesn't happen without community development. So I intentionally got the cart before the horse here because I wanted to brag on One Georgia. And in its 25th year, I think that's important. But when it comes to rural development, I think we all know that there is no silver bullet. The state offers a myriad of tools and resources to assist local communities who are looking to help themselves. But, and I've said this before, the state is not responsible for local government operations. Instead, we provide resources to help communities to help themselves. And you can see here just a few, and I won't go into all of them. We do a lot of work on the downtown development front. We've got a revolving loan fund that complements the Georgia Cities Foundation. Together, those two programs have invested, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but I believe it's about $70 million over the last 20 5 years. I think they both came on board in 2001. It was a philanthropic public partnership, and I think that they have leveraged about $250 million in small business investment into rural downtowns, small businesses. Certainly the Georgia Main Street program is important, and our historic preservation efforts. The Community Development Block Grant, many of you are familiar with. This is federal funding that goes to many of our rural communities for targeted water and sewer improvements, neighborhood housing investment, other community infrastructure needs. There are a couple of federal state commissions that we participate in. And then on the infrastructure front, and I know in the budget this year you all noted the governor's inclusion of an additional $250 million to GFA for the Georgia Fund. For those communities who are seeking large-scale community-wide infrastructure investment, we do that in the form of a long-term low-interest loan through GFA. So GFA and also USDA provides loan resources, and we really work with local communities to try to make them apprise them of those resources. Here's a map. It's a little difficult to see, but all of the blue dots represent CDBG investments over the last 5 years. All of there are purple dots on there as well. Those are also a kind of a subset of CDBG. The red dots in the northern part of the state are one of our federal state regional commissions, the Appalachian Regional Commission. This chart does not include data from last year, and we actually are now a part of a Southeastern Crescent Regional Commission that made 17 awards in the southern part of the state last year. And then the green dots, a little bit hard for you to see, but those actually represent housing tax credit investments over the last 5 years. The housing tax credit is a federal tax credit that also there's an additional state housing tax credit that enables us to extend that credit further and make more awards around the state. If you can see the green dots that are all across the state, I will note that most all of that rural housing investment for rural workforce housing is made possible by the state housing tax credit. It was actually passed in the same year that One Georgia came to be, and it was intentionally to focus on rural workforce housing through a tool that also had benefits to other parts of our state. You'll notice that there are a number in the metro Atlanta area. 40% of our population lives in metro Atlanta, so it's reasonable to expect that you would also have investment there. I want to share one quick story to talk about how all of this investment comes together in Tifton. So recently we were visiting with Julie Smith, the mayor in Tifton, and she took us about 5 blocks south of downtown into an area that would traditionally be considered the wrong side of the tracks. Now there's an elementary school there, and across from the elementary school we have a CDBG funded community center that was built about 3 years ago. Next door to the community center is a 60-unit housing tax credit development, brand new, that really is the showpiece for this community. Because of those investments, the local housing authority decided they needed to rehabilitate their property that was in the neighborhood, and a mobile home park is actually converted to single-family development. You can really see how this investment has begun to change the entire community. But just as important, and remember, everything we do is about how we serve Georgians, are the fact that we've got 60 families who now have a safe and affordable place to live, and they work in the local school system. It's right across the street, both the Cook County and the Tift County hospitals. They work for the state. They work for Sanderson Farms in Moultrie. They work for the local Walmart and a number of other local employers. It's emblematic of the reason that we develop workforce housing. Really quickly on homeownership, I only share this to highlight a really important, and we don't talk about it a lot, program at DCA with you guys. It's the Georgia Dream program. There's no state money that goes into this. This is actually funded through tax-exempt bonds. But through this program, we help to facilitate first-time home buyers and getting into a new home. So 65% of Georgians own the home they live in. We have the lowest home ownership rate in the Southeast. We have legislation that's being introduced this year to help us to continue to drive the Georgia Dream program. You can't quite see it because of the lighting here, but you should note that over the 46 years that this program has been in existence, we have funded nearly 52,000 families through, and I should say this works in conjunction with local banks. We're simply the backstop to the local lender, but we funded about 52,000 households in the state. A couple of legislators have come to me and told me that 20 years ago they bought their home through the Georgia Dream program, and this is a phenomenal program that has touched all 159 counties. So I talked briefly about home ownership. I think it's always important for us to remember that home ownership is the ideal from a community development standpoint. On the very other end of a very complex housing spectrum is homelessness. And I don't have a lot of time to delve in, but I'm happy to just give you kind of a quick overview. So if you look at our data around homelessness in the state of Georgia, certainly the concentration is in our metro areas. Although this slide would help you to know what you probably already know, and that is this is an issue in every community in the state. Actually, in many of our rural areas, you see a higher proportion, as a comparison to your total population of homeless than you do in some of our metro areas. On an absolute basis, based on the most recent census of unsheltered homeless in the state, these are the 15 counties where we have the most concentration of unsheltered homeless. Each of these counties has documented more than 100 people who are on a particular night in January living on the street. So I share this data because I want to talk about solutions, and the solutions here are really complex. The state does not provide direct services to people who are experiencing homelessness. So I want to repeat that. The state does not provide direct services to people who are experiencing homelessness. This is a local issue through which we provide funding solutions to local service providers. To date, and I'm going to talk about some action that y'all took last year, but to date, most of this funding has come from the federal government through HUD's Continuum of Care program. And that's a competitive program where local service providers within 9 different groupings in the state of Georgia compete for funding. Those 9 groupings include 7 mostly metro area counties, the city of Atlanta, and then the balance of state, which is the 152 counties that you are focused on, and including Leader F. Stration, Gwinnett is part of the balance of state. These next 5 slides, and I'm just going to run through them really quickly, represent local service provider capacity that is funded through those federal CO's Continuum of Care dollars. So these funds are for homeless prevention. That's keeping people in their houses if they are about to face eviction. These counties are for outreach services. Again, this is federal funding that's flows competitively. This is for emergency shelter, across the state. This is for transitional housing, and this is for permanent supportive housing. Now, if you put all of those together, there is some federal funding that is flowing to all of the counties that are not white here. I'm not going to tell you which emergency shelters are for men only or for women only, or it's a patchwork of local service providers that provide these solutions. Now, last year, you said, hey, we need to pilot a Georgia way. And so there was $1 million included in the budget that you voted for, and we actually in December made 6 awards, 6 grants to local service providers to provide services that will help get is projected about 250 people off the street. Now, it is entirely too early, 1 month after we made those grants, to tell you, how we're progressing on that front. But I did want to report back because I think that was a really important investment that the state made. And my simple point with this chart, and then I am done, is that we really need to build more capacity across the state to address this important need. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on these or any of the many other programs that you may have. But I did include our contact information here for questions.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Nunn. That was so much great information. And I'm sure members are wondering if we can get that information. Ryan, I think you said that we could get that. So we'll get that presentation out to you soon so that you'll have it. Okay, we do have some questions for you. We'll start with number 10, number 9.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for the presentation. Always enjoy your presentations. When you were talking about homelessness in the rural communities and the money had been appropriated, who administers that money, those monies in our rural communities?
Are we talking about the state?
Right.
The state. So all of the homeless funds are granted through a competitive process to local service providers. In some cases, that is, I know in Atlanta, you'll have the Partners for Home or the Gateway Center, or we actually in the new program we had 2 new service providers in the northern part of the metro area that came online. In many other parts of the state, it may be the Salvation Army, or the Union Mission is a big provider down in the Savannah area. I would have to get you a long list. I think that there Must Ministries is a provider. Some people know in the northwestern part of the state, but I'll have to get you a list because it's a fairly lengthy list of service providers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? What number are you?
3.
3, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I just know on one of your slides, I think on the one Georgia funded, there were some counties that was listed as ineligible. What makes a county ineligible?
Yeah, so great question. So somewhat similar to the definition that that you were sharing earlier, we have communities that are eligible for One Georgia funding that are less than 50,000 population, and then there are other communities that we would consider kind of the hub cities that are conditionally eligible for funding for larger scale regional projects that would truly impact an entire region. Most of the metro Atlanta area is ineligible for One Georgia funding because of the way that the authority was set up. And so I think, is it 10? There's 8. There are 8 communities that are ineligible for One Georgia funding, and those are all concentrated in the metro Atlanta area.
Yeah, I think there's one in South Georgia, the one I was looking at on the map.
No, that's not
Okay,
ineligible.
not
They just
ineligible.
haven't
Okay,
received
just
any
trying-
awards. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I know
so you
they're
can
way under
challenge
that population.
if you look on that, there's a difference between gray and light blue, but it doesn't show up very well. It's okay.
That's a good question. That was a question I had. Was you said 146 counties had partnerships with? So I guess that
146 counties that over the 25 years have received funding. That's right.
Have received. Okay, got it. I have a question. I think I heard you say that 65% of Georgians own their own home, but that is the lowest in the Southeast. Do you know which state has the highest and what their percentage is?
So we were looking at this earlier, and I don't know what the highest is. I mean, the highest in the Southeast is probably a state like maybe Mississippi, that's in the mid-70s. I would say that we're about 0.4% below the nationwide average. We're a large state. We're the 8th largest state Yeah, and I think I'm not worried about our home ownership rate, but I think it's important that we pay attention that we are lower than South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, and so we just need to continue to focus on that.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have a question for the commissioner? No. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for the presentation, and we've talked, and we know you're going to be coming back
We're at your
regularly
service, so
to
let us
update
know.
us on all of these programs that you administer. We do appreciate you.
And we'll all stick around afterwards in between. Y'all run into the next meeting if you've got any sidebar.
Great. Thank you. And speaking of running to the next meeting, we had several people that had some important meetings to get to at 3 o'clock or before. So you will see that Jet Tony is on our agenda. I've already spoken with Jet, and we're going to put him at the top of the list at our next meeting. We do not have a standing meeting day and time right now. I think House Media Services just said yesterday that they were all full. So we're going to meet when we can meet, and we'll meet where we can when we need to meet. I do expect us to meet next week, but we do not have a meeting date set yet. But I'll get with you as soon as we do, and of course let you members know when and where that will be. So is there any other discussion or questions from the committee? Okay, well, if not, we'll adjourn. Thank you all for being here.